Joe Biden is mocked roundly, as he should be, for confusing pop stars during a turkey pardoning in Minnesota today. So we'll be talking about the fact that he pardoned 2 turkeys and confused 2 pop music turkeys. We'll go over some of that, what that means, and of course always the question of the age with our current steward for president. In other news, while Argentina elects a more libertarian-sounding candidate, Donald Trump is allowed to sit in on ballots that he was being challenged off of recently. So we'll be talking about what this means, what's going on with the race, and the curious way that it was worded in the Colorado case. So we'll be going over some of that, what that means, where we go, and what's happening there. Mike Johnson has released all the videos from January 6th, except for those that would cause a direct national security threat. So we'll be talking about what's happening with that, what this means, what it means for people who have not seen all the hours of film. So we'll be going over some of that, and how this has driven people into their own corners again. So we'll go over some of that and where that goes and what's going on with that. And Elon Musk threatens a nuclear lawsuit, so he says, thermonuclear even, against Media Matters for driving advertisers away from Twitter like they've been doing since he took over Twitter. It is going to be all of this and more, so grab a snack, get something to drink, get some friends in here, and prepare for the next 2 hours of news over here on Contemporary. And I was looking for a place called the Lee Ho Fooks. I got me some beef chow mein on the brain. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. You know, it was a soundtrack that from Super Mario Bros. 2 that actually made me want to learn how to play bass to begin with. Seriously, like, you remember, and you could do it in the Super Nintendo versions, but also in the original NES version of the game. If you hit and went into the pause menu, it took away all the treble tracks for the background music, and you only heard the bass line, and it was so cool to hear. And I think about that every time I hear music from Super Mario Bros. 2 or Doki Doki Panic if you happen to be living in Japan. But we've got a lot to go over here tonight. Definitely got a bunch of stuff to talk about and what's going on with that. Oh, I gotta take the tagline off of here, because we're not playing Fallout right now, so the tagline's going to be off. But yeah, a bunch of stuff to go over here today. Just a little anecdote before we get started, and I'm going to start off by saying, as much as I enjoy the product I'm about to describe, and I will be naming them this time, I don't usually do that. In fact, I go out of my way not to name the products that I consume while I'm on stream. Unless, well, of course, because they're not paying me. But I, on and off, I don't know if any of you guys have Grinds coffee pouches where you're at. I did a stupid thing yesterday. I did a very stupid thing. Because I enjoy that it's coffee in a pouch that looks like a pouch of chewing tobacco. There's no tobacco in it. There's no nicotine in it. It's, as much as I like coffee, it's something I enjoy a lot. But I haven't had it in a while, and I picked some up, and it was the mocha flavor. But it advertised on the tin that it was twice the caffeine. Well, stupid me, while I was at work yesterday, decided that I was going to grab one of those pouches and throw it in about noon. And I didn't think much of it. I spit it out when I went to the grocery store after work yesterday. Guess who didn't fucking sleep last night? I was still laying awake. I think about 3:30 I did finally fall asleep, but I go to bed at 10 every night because I get up at 5 for work, and then I can come out and do stuff for Contemporary and stuff, to entertain you guys here. But yeah, guess who didn't sleep last night? And guess who is not doing that during the week ever again, because that was a nightmare of a day. I actually wound up going home early today, and I passed out for a couple hours here, so I'm a little bit refreshed right now, but lessons learned. If it says twice the caffeine on the package, don't use it afternoon, especially if you have to get up early in the morning. And bottle here, it's a Dr. Pepper variant, and of course, the company that put the Dr. Pepper variant in this bottle is not paying me, so you can't see the label on that for obvious reasons. But yeah, there's caffeine in this, but it's a small dose, not like 50 milligrams a pouch. Stupid me. But anyway, we've got to get over the news. Hey, with the caffeine in the bottle, maybe I'll be energized a little bit and we'll get through some of this stuff here today. But we've got a lot to go over here on Contemporary. We'll be talking about Biden's pardoning of the turkeys, thanks to my father for putting that up onto the top of the ticket. So we'll be talking about that today. It's actually second on the ticket, because we all know what happens, what I always do on the top of the ticket when we do the ticket. The Trump news about him staying on the ballot. We've got some economy news. We've averted a shutdown. We'll be talking a bit about that. The tapes will be about the middle of the show, so we'll go over some of that. Some Israel news, of course. Keep in mind, that's all under the fog of war, so some of that we can take with a grain of salt, and we'll close out for the day talking about Elon Musk and the UAW. So, a lot to go over here today. Let's get the live chat up. Remember, I do read chat between topics, so you can chat freely over on Rumble, YouTube, DLive, Twitch. You can chat on all those. Unfortunately, I can't see your chats if you're chatting over on Facebook, and I never open up my Facebook and actually see if you guys are actually chatting over there. So, you guys are the real OGs leaving comments on that if you do see that. But let's get into it and let's get started. We are going to start, of course, with the passing of somebody of note in the world, somebody who's probably affected many of our lives, unless some of you are younger at this point. But we're going to start by talking about Rosalynn Carter. Let's get the live chat up here because I see you guys are going. Mr. Scott is going crazy over here. He's in caps lock mode. He says, "Oh, your music is loud." Like you. Thank you, Mr. Scott, for that. I'll bump that down just a little bit, too. AI religion is getting rocked. Nice. AI is not alive. Coffee chew. Yes, it's delicious, but don't try to do 50 milligrams of caffeine at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. My dog woke me up at 1:30 to go pee. He's 16, so he's an extra pain in the ass. But, he's been around you for 16 years, so definitely that. Liberty and Bell, 2 turkeys. Look like second-year breeders. Won't save them from the fate of being turned into dog food and fertilizer. Oh yeah, eventually, because they're not going to get to the Thanksgiving table anymore. All right, let's talk Rosalynn Carter. Rosalynn Carter, former First Lady and tireless humanitarian who advocated for mental health issues, died at 96. NPC News is reporting for this today. Daniel Arkin is the author. Rosalynn Carter, the former First Lady and humanitarian who championed mental health care, provided a constant political counsel to her husband, former President Jimmy Carter. I hate to say that, but I would not use that as a tagline, because he was a one-termer and he kind of sucked as president. And modeled graceful longevity for the nation, died Sunday at her home in Plains, Georgia. According to the Carter Center, Carter was 96. She entered hospice care in her home on Friday, and Jimmy went with her. In a statement, former President Carter said, "Rosalynn was my equal partner in everything I ever accomplished. She gave me wise guidance and encouragement when I needed it. As long as Rosalynn was in the world, I always knew somebody loved and supported me." Rosalynn Carter was widely regarded for her political shrewdness, drawing particular praise for her keen electoral instincts, down-to-earth appeal, and work on behalf of the White House, including serving as an envoy to Latin America. She devoted herself to several social causes in the course of her public life, including programs that supported health care resources, human rights, social justice, and the needs of elderly people. 25 years ago, we did not dream that people might someday actually be able to recover from mental illnesses, Carter said at a mental health symposium in '03. Today, it is a very real possibility. For one who has worked on mental health issues as long as I have, she added, "This is a miraculous development and an answer to my prayers." Now, party aside, because I am very, very, very openly not happy with Democrats right now and haven't been for numerous years. We've talked about this before when Jimmy went into hospice care, especially. I don't hold any ill will towards the Carters in their public life. Jimmy Carter was a terrible president. I've looked at the statistics, I've looked at how everything went with that, and in doing a study into the financial crash, something that it hit me so personally, so that's part of what got me into this political sphere, is trying to figure out what happened with that and how that started. I was able to trace a lot of the downfall coming off of that to the Carter administration and policies that were done with that. Carter was a terrible president. Post-presidency Carter, public life Carter, and charity Carter were three of the greatest people ever. And Rosalind was right there by his side for all of this. Jimmy and Rosalind Carter, in the charitable sense, were incredible people. I mean, Jimmy Carter got a guest spot on King of the Hill because of his work with Habitat for Humanity. And Bobby mistook him for Jesus Christ because he had JC embroidered on his shirt and was imparting good wisdom and doing charity. Of course, Carter was not Christ, although I'm sure that some left-wingers probably could look back and think that, but Carter was not. He was a great, and again, what Rosalind Carter did was not to advocate for the government to do the mental health charity work and do it through taxes. Rosalind Carter encouraged you to get out there and open up your wallet or give your time or do something for the mental health cause. Their problems politically aside, these were great people. I'm pretty sure that Jimmy is going to be, and as many times as I've made the joke about the guinea worms, I'm pretty sure that Jimmy's going to be not too far behind her, because when you've been with somebody for as long as as those two have been together, and I've seen it in various funerals around my family where the wives went very, very soon after the husbands, or vice versa, whichever way that it went. I mean, when you've been in this situation for as long as you have, Rosalind really was a part of Jimmy Carter, and without her, I feel like he is going to succumb at some point too, partially from loneliness, partially because he has finished his job serving her throughout the rest of her life. Plus, he is like 98 years old. I'll be happy if I'm wrong, because again, post-presidency Jimmy Carter, great person, fantastic person. And he was the kind of person too, by the way, where he's not like the Obamas and the Clintons. Like once he was out of office, he was out of office. He wasn't pulling the strings behind the background. He wasn't trying to do shadow government crap or anything like that. Jimmy Carter, once he was done being president, was done with politics. It was over. He didn't want to do it anymore. And I appreciate that. In a world, again, where we have so many people who are either vying for the presidency again or trying to throw their weight around with it, to have somebody who will step away, that is the mark of a true statesman right there. So, Rosalind Carter, rest in peace, into your final resting place. I hope you do well with that, and I hope you believed and were saved. Speaking of presidents that are older than dirt, the Washington Post, which usually is all in for Biden, actually had to throw a little bit of mockery at him for this one here. I'm kind of interested how they're going to twist this. I know I've got a Fox News article talking about this a little bit later too. Fox News is going to twist it a different way. Biden turns 81. Pardons turkeys, confuses Brittany for Taylor. Travis M. Andrews reporting. It was the president's birthday and the turkey's lucky day. I just want you to know it's difficult turning 60, man. President Biden quipped to the crowd assembled Monday night outside the White House for that most hallowed/hollow of American traditions, the turkey pardon. This year's pair of gobblers were named Liberty and Bell, hailing from the family farm in Wilmar, Minnesota. Which, by the way, I know where that is. Both weighed in at about 42 pounds, and neither made a peep during the 7-minute ceremony. Biden, of course, came in at 81 years old, not 60. Now, keep in mind, Biden wasn't making a joke about pretending that he was young. Biden actually, in his Alzheimer's addled brain, thinks that he's 60 still. Though Biden called it the biggest edition of this wonderful White House tradition, the event felt exceedingly breezy and unmemorable, even by turkey pardon standards. I can't actually, honestly, tell you, and I've been following politics now since 2012, but even still, my parents have been following it for longer than I have. I can't tell you that I've ever watched the turkey pardon. I mean, I'm aware that it's there, and usually when I would listen to the morning shows, talk about it on the news shows, I was aware that it was happening, but I've never felt the need to sit down and say, hey, let's go through and do this hollow ceremony where turkeys get to live, even though in a couple years, like Mr. Scott said, they're going to be... I would say they're probably, if they're being pardoned now, they're probably going to be in an encore dinner in the next couple years. Mogwai says, I pardon this turkey for the Thanksgiving. Sir, that's the leader of South Korea. I need to pre-read some of this stuff before I say it out loud, which sometimes, especially with Rumble chats, I actually have to do that anyway, but I didn't pre-read the Mogwai's comment, and that took me a surprise. Maybe that's not such a bad thing with 2-year wars raging and the government perpetually on the edge of shutdown. Perhaps it wasn't the time to celebrate too much. Last month, the White House decided to ground the B-52s, the planned entertainment at the state dinner for Australia, citing the political climate. Things haven't got much mirthier since then. I actually thought they were going to be talking about the plane, not the band. Biden was 25 minutes late on Monday. Children perched on their parents' shoulders had begun wriggling restlessly. After reaching the podium around 12:40 p.m., Biden pulled off his aviators and said, "Hey man, before I begin, I'm gonna ask for a vote. Do I free the turkeys today, man?" The ayes had it according to a voice vote. Biden mentioned he's more comfortable with chickens because they never grow that big. He touted the admin's investment in rural farms and paid respects to former First Lady Rosalind Carter, who died on Sunday at 96. At least he did not confuse her for Dianne Feinstein. That was a Clinton mistake, and that story actually got bumped from the stack. I had that in the stack, and I'm like, man, we can't get to that one, unfortunately. He also made at least one gaffe that may require pardoning from Swifties, which is particularly unfortunate because Liberty and Bell are fans of Taylor Swift. Really? According to the wild claim made by Steve Lykin, chairman of the National Turkey Foundation. Just to get here, Liberty and Bell had to beat some tough odds in competition, Biden said. He added that a turkey making it to the White House was even harder than getting a ticket to the Renaissance tour or Britney's tour. She's down in, it's kind of warm in Brazil right now. He seemed to be referring to Taylor Swift's Eras tour, which is especially true because Britney is not on tour right now. She's currently dancing around with knives on Instagram in her house. A fan died Friday after attending the show in Rio de Janeiro during a record heat wave. "That's a big bird, man!" Biden said as one of the turkeys was brought up to the stage. He then raised his hand I hereby pardon Liberty and Bell. All right, man. Congratulations, birds. So, there they are, Liberty and Bell. Again, they're going to be in a Frozen TV dinner within the next 2 years. But the mockery came with that, too. We'll use the New York Post for this one here. Biden confuses Taylor Swift, Britney Spears, and botched turkey pardon joke. From Steve Nelson. The Moat West says, these turkeys are not pardoned. Sir, this is a Wendy's. Sir, in before, that's what he actually says. Let's see. President Biden confused pop superstars Taylor Swift and Britney Spears on Monday as he badly missed a joke attempt during the annual turkey pardon event at the White House. Biden said the turkeys Liberty and Bell, who will be spared from Thanksgiving tables, were in competition similar to ticket buyers for Beyoncé's Renaissance and Swift's Eras tours. So just to get here, Liberty and Bell had to beat some tough odds, man. The competition. They had to work hard, show patience, and be willing to travel over 1,000 miles. You could say even this is harder than getting a ticket to the Renaissance tour or Britney's tour. She's down in, it's kind of warm in Brazil right now, man. There are some photos of the event, including a young child chasing the turkey. And Taylor and Britney. And he got roundly mocked for this, of course. Biden mocked after confusing pop music stars during a turkey pardoning joke, impeachable offenses. Let's just look down here a little bit at the tweets here. Joe Biden makes a joke about how hard it is to get tickets to Beyonce's Renaissance tour, except he says that her name is Britney. He then says she is currently performing in Brazil, which is where Taylor Swift just did shows in her Eras tour. Beyonce's tour ended in October. Actually, there's video attached to this here. So we can just come down Greg Price's page here, which that in and of itself is something you don't really want to do, but let's scroll down into this one here just a bit. Yep, here it is. Here's the video. On-air production.
1,000 miles. You could say even this harder than getting a ticket to the Renaissance tour or Britney's tour. She's down in, it's kind of warm in Brazil right now.
That poor woman, by the way.
Look, 1,000 miles. You could say even this.
That has got to be one of the hardest jobs in the country, being a sign language interpreter for Joe Biden. I bet you that woman drinks. Let's see, what else did we get for this one? What is Biden talking about? The RNC's research account posted alongside a clip of the remarks. 81-year-old Joe Biden, attempting not to appear ancient, mixes up Beyonce, Taylor Swift, and Britney Spears. Outkick founder Clay Travis posted. Grandpa Joe is trying to be hip and edgy again. Words cannot describe the experience of seeing a leader of the free world pardon a large bird, another user wrote. Biden tried to make a Taylor Swift joke, something involving how far the turkeys traveled to get to Washington, but badly mangled it, calling her Britney. So there you go. The annual turkey pardon. Hollow victory as much as it is. They are pardoned. Mogwai says Biden was quoted as saying, well, oops, I did it again. And Mr. Scott pointed out on the Greg Price video, of course, on top of the sign language interpreter, there are closed captions. Although I think those are added by Twitter or X. All right. Now, unfortunately, we do have to talk about some breaking news in the gun control debate, and I wanted to look into this a bit more before I was able to get on air. Unfortunately, I was not able to do so. There does appear to be an amendment strengthening the Second Amendment in Ohio currently that is making its way through the State House. I think this might derail it here, but shooter wounds 4. No deaths, thankfully, except for the shooter at a Walmart near Dayton, Ohio, before dying of self-inflicted gunshot wound, police say. And what's amazing here is we actually might get some closure from this one, because the shooter is a theoretically straight white male, but we'll talk about that in just a moment. 4 people were wounded after a shooter opened fire at a Walmart near Dayton, Ohio, before taking his own life on Monday night, authorities said. The suspect was identified as 20-year-old Benjamin Charles Jones, who lived in Dayton, said Captain Chad Lindsay, acting Beaver Creek Police Department chief, during a Tuesday news conference. Police said Jones entered the store in Beaver Creek, about 10 miles east of Dayton, around 8:35 p.m. and shot 4 people before turning the gun on himself. Witnesses saw Jones enter the Walmart holding a rifle that police identified as a high-point .45 caliber carbine long gun, which is a scary semi-automatic rifle, Lindsay said. He then walked through the different parts of the store, appearing to shoot indiscriminately at patrons, he added. No shots were fired at by any responding police officers, the department said in a social media post. The victims were taken to nearby hospitals for treatment, Captain Scott Molnar said in a news briefing on Monday. 1 man and 3 women were injured, 3 are in stable condition, and 1 remains in critical condition, Lindsay said. On Tuesday, police didn't provide specifics about their conditions. The gunshot injuries sustained by the victims appear to be largely random, Lindsay said, and the wounds were throughout all different parts of the body. Police did not release any additional information about the victims, but noted details about their backgrounds or races are considered part of the ongoing investigation into a possible motive behind the attack. Translation, they weren't black, so they can't make this a racially motivated thing. But they are saying that this young gentleman is a white male. Reading from an article from Times Now World, which is not green check verified, but I wanted to include some of this in here from the description. Benjamin Charles Jones has been identified as the gunman who opened fire inside a Walmart in Beaver Creek, leaving at least 4 injured. The suspect later died of an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound, police said. Meanwhile, one of the witnesses, identified as Alicia Ring, posted a Facebook Live telling people that she was shopping for Thanksgiving when the suspect walked past her with an assault rifle, which he didn't, by the way, it was a carbine, and started shooting. God was watching over me tonight. He walked right past me. I just wanted to get groceries, she said, while sobbing uncontrollably. She described the shooter as young, tall, skinny white guy with long hair. She said he was carrying a half-open army book bag and looked like he was on a mission. So, while we didn't see a lot of coverage of this today, it is possible that over the next coming days, this is going to be the next big thing that we see as the part of our argument for gun control. But one of the things that I wanted to point out, and I mentioned this over on X, is has anybody other than me noticed that these people who go in and do these random shootings either die at police hands disproportionately or at their own hands if police aren't firing a shot? A lot of these people out there mysteriously don't get to be questioned by the police and have a deposition or a statement released to the public. Have you ever noticed that? Something I've always found weird. But we will see what happens with this and where this goes, and maybe I'm just noticing a little bit too much as we go. Alright, what else do we have here? Let's talk election news. I think that's going to be our next logical point here. Got to refresh this one because this is video. Continue without supporting this time. Yes, I will. But we have Javier, not Alejandro. Javier Milei is the new president after a polarizing election in Argentina. Let's listen to NPC News' reporting on this one.
Fiercely polarized presidential election is over. And populist Javier Milei came out ahead. Right-wing economist and TV personality securing the presidency after running an eccentric campaign promising to rein in soaring inflation and fight socialist values.
Porque hoy comienza la reconstrucción de Argentina.
Supporters flooding the streets of Buenos Aires, hopeful for change at a time when the poverty rate has reached 40% and the country with the third largest economy in Latin America. Milei securing the famous Casa Rosada after a contentious runoff with more than 55% of the vote compared with his rival, Argentina's economy minister, Sergio Massa, the largest margin of victory since the country returned to democratic elections in 1983. A controversial figure known by his fans as the Crazy and the Wig for his larger-than-life personality and hair. At times compared to Brazil's president Jair Bolsonaro and former U.S. President Donald Trump, who congratulated Milei on his victory, writing, quote, "Make Argentina great again" on his Truth Social platform. Before rattling Argentinian politics, Javier Milei was a TV pundit, loved for his hot takes on the economy and politics that boosted ratings.
What do you see as his biggest challenge going into office?
Getting forward some of his critical proposals through the Argentine Congress is going to be a challenge, as well as the financial situation overall. The Argentine peso is viewed by many as, as essentially being worthless.
He's a self-declared anarcho-capitalist, a libertarian and staunch supporter of the free market. His fight against inflation, which has topped 140%, is centered around closing the nation's central bank.
Dollarizing the economy is obviously incredibly problematic, and insofar as how to actually do it, and also a country of the size of Argentina is challenging as well.
Argentina's recent legalization of abortion is also in Milei's crosshairs. Milei has proposed a plan to repeal the law while juggling the notion that climate change is not a human-made issue.
The sizable victory of Javier Milei shows the discontent of the Argentine people with their current status.
All right, Stephen Romo joins us in studio now. Stephen,
All right, I don't care about Stephen here, but I do want to talk just a bit about what we're seeing from this. Now, as far as Milei goes, obviously, because of the way that I structure my stance on politics, I am not going to be overly impressed by this gentleman until I actually start to see results. Until I start to see what it is that he is going to do and how he's going to get through the Congress. One of the biggest problems that the Donald had. Excuse me. But also some problems that, have plagued past Democratic administrations. And W, although he could push his pro-war platform fairly easily based on the fact of, hey man, I want to tell you right now, you just need to go out and buy stuff. And support my administration, otherwise terrorists win. You don't want the terrorists to win, do you? He was able to pull that card disproportionately throughout his presidency. Part of the reason that he is one of the more evil politicians that we've ever had in this country. As far as Milei goes. He's saying a lot of the right stuff. He is. The thought to ban abortion as a libertarian is a little bit far for me, based on the fact that he's supposed to be advocating for smaller government. And, if you're libertarian, you typically try to tackle the abortion issue through shame, not through government intervention. That's, having flirted with the LP for as much as I did, I understand that that's how that is supposed to work. But, he's coming out and he's saying these very Trumpy things. He's being a showman. But there are problems with his campaign. There are problems, of course, with the execution of this. And I do want to see if he can actually walk the walk and make the deal with a country who was very socialistic up to the very, very recent history, like within my lifetime. With this, though, I want to point out a few things. The blackpilling out there, of course. There was a concerted effort to get rid of this guy, to make sure that he couldn't ascend to the presidency. There was absolutely a concerted effort to do so. And he was able to get on past it. It is the economy, stupid. Now, they're talking 140% inflation. Somewhere that... We're nowhere near currently. I promise, we're nowhere near that currently. We didn't cook the books or anything to make our inflation numbers look lower by any stretch of the imagination. But no matter what it is the pundits come out and try to tell you, if you are feeling the pinch in your wallet, you are going to want to change in the administration. It's just going to happen. And, like, I see some of the propaganda, like Republicans against Trump. They're really, 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 really big against this guy. Because he's Trumpy, and it gives hope to the Trump people that, hey, maybe they can get out of their house and get somebody elected if they just organize a knock on doors and actually get out of the house and not be doomed and blackpilled like Republicans against Trump want them to be. Doomed and blackpilled and think, why would we even get out and vote because our vote isn't going to matter. That's the narrative that they want to sit down and go. And, you know, they're coming out here, and some of the Trump detractors in the comment section with the Republicans against Trump are saying, oh, well, everything that they're complaining about in Argentina is just going to get worse under this guy because he's Trump Jr. He's evil like Trump, and he's just going to make everything worse. Well, I'm sorry, when you're dealing with 140% inflation, and you keep electing the same people and you keep getting the same results, what's the harm in trying something else? Something different? And again, with Milei, my big worry is that he is going to be fighting against a Congress that is staunchly against him to try to keep the status quo going the way that it should be going. Or the way they think they should be doing that. Check in with what you guys are saying here. Even if they do, they get disappeared and you don't get a statement. Oh, yeah. He's going to adopt U.S. dollars. Yeah, I know that's one of the things Milei wanted to do was adopt the U.S. currency as the basis of their currency, which I have my own inhibitions about, because of my lack of faith in U.S. currency right now, but we're talking about Milei at this point. This will only end in a coup. Well, the thing is, they're going to frame the coup as Milei's people striking the coup. Isn't the plot of Man of the Year? I've not seen that movie, so I don't know. Yes, Robin Williams is in it. I'll look that up. I'll see if that's streaming anywhere. Actually, let's do that right now. Man of the Year streaming. It's an 2006 film. Well, if I had Peacock, I could get it for free. It does look like I can grab it on Amazon Prime for probably a fee. No, it's included with Prime. It's free on Prime right now. I might watch that after stream today. A comedian who hosts a new satire program decides to run for president, and a computerized voting machine malfunction gets him elected. Okay. Hey, this might be my 7th movie that I've ever seen. Thank you for the recommendation, the Mogwai. Let's see. I'll put it on the to-watch list. They probably use Dominion machines. 150% inflation per month. This will hit the dollar like a freight train. Well, let's see. The Associated Press reporting, The Lion, the Wig, and the Warrior. Who is Javier Milei, Argentina's president-elect? From David Biller and Daniel Politi. His legions of fans call him the Madman and the Wig due to his ferocity and unruly mop of hair. He refers to himself as the Lion. He thinks such education is a Marxist plot to destroy the family. based. His views his clone mastiffs as his children with 4 paws, unbased. And it suggests that people should be allowed to sell their own vital organs. Well, he is an ANCAP. I think that's incredibly stupid, but a fool and his organs are soon parted. He is Javier Milei, Argentina's next president. I mean, it's better they sell their own organs than somebody else's organs. A few years ago, Milei was a television talking head whom bookers loved because his screeds against the government spending and the ruling political class boosted ratings at the time. And up until mere months ago, hardly any political expert believed he had a real shot at becoming president of South America's second largest economy. But Milei, a 53-year-old economist, has rocked Argentina's political establishment and inserted himself into what has long been effectively a two-party system by amassing a groundswell of support, with his prescriptions of drastic measures to rein in soaring inflation and by pledging to crusade against the creep of socialism in society, which, again, coming from a Latin American country, is huge. At the heart of his economic plan for Argentina is a proposal to replace the local currency, the peso, with the US dollar. He has repeatedly said the only way to end the scourge of inflation, which has topped 140%, is to prevent politicians from continuing to print money. As such, he plans to extinguish the central bank. But, like Mr. Scott pointed out, when we have to extend our dollar into a second country, we're going to need more of those dollars, which don't have a GDP attached to them when they're being spent in Argentina. I have my inhibitions about that. This self-described anarcho-capitalist, Milei's libertarianism was a novelty for Argentina. He has spoken in favor of loosening the country's labor laws and promoted a vision of starkly smaller government to boost economic growth that entails eliminating half of the government's ministries, including health and education. As a symbol of the deep cuts he champions, he has at times campaigned with a revving chainsaw in hand. Reducing the state size dovetails with calls for the political caste to be purged from Argentina's government, much as former U.S. President Donald Trump spoke of draining the swamp in reference to entrenched establishment and the fact that D.C. is literally built on a swamp. Milei has often drawn comparisons to Trump, a leader he openly admires. So, yeah. They might kill this guy. They might JFK him. Yes, President Milei, please accept this gift from the Ford Motor Company of a custom Lincoln convertible. The only one out there. Use it to take a tour in Buenos Aires. So that's what they say that he is. Again, my big question is can he actually tame the inflation? I think he can, and I think that worries people, especially coming into a major election year in this country, in which, like it or not, inflation is going to be on the ballot. But we'll see what happens with that. Meanwhile, in Trump world, we have 2 states that have weighed in on the validity of keeping the Donald off the ballot. First, Michigan. NPC News reporting Michigan judge denies effort to keep Trump off 2024 ballot. The decision comes after a group of Michigan voters filing a legal challenge to Trump's candidacy argued that he'd violated the 14th Amendment. He hasn't, by the way. Well, he may have, but he needs to have a conviction to do so. As much as judges that'll terrify you and activists. We'll talk about this in things I like and things that I hate later. As much as judges and activists don't want you to believe that he needs to be convicted for this, he does need to be convicted of this. No man shall be held for loss of life, liberty, or the pursuit of happiness without due process of law, which they have not extended to him. Zoe Richards reporting a Michigan judge on Tuesday dismissed an effort to keep former President Trump off the state's ballot in 24. The judge said that under Michigan law, the Secretary of State does not have the authority to intervene in a primary election if the party chooses to list a candidate who would not qualify for the office. So this is for the primary side of things. The ultimate decision is made by the respective political party with the consent of the listed candidate, the judge wrote. The decision comes after a group of Michigan voters in September filed a legal challenge to Trump's candidacy, arguing that his efforts to overturn the election and his conduct surrounding the Capitol Selfie Fest violated Section 3 of the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, making him ineligible for office. We're going to look at that right now. We're going to look at Section 3, and we're going to look at the forbidden Section 1 that the people who are advocates of Section 3 don't want you to see. Let's go with... What do I want to go with? 14th Amendment text. So this is in 5 sections. We're going to read it in its entirety, and we're going to talk about the sections they want you to talk about here. Section 1. Now, let's skip right to Section 3, because that's the one that seems to be on the ballot right now. Section 3. No person shall be a senator, representative of Congress, or elector of the president and vice president, or hold any office, civil or military, under the U.S. or under any state, who have been previously taken an oath as a member of Congress, or as an officer of the United States, or as a member of any state legislature, or as an executive or judicial officer of any state, to support the Constitution of the United States, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against these same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof, but Congress may vote by a vote of 2/3 of each house to remove such disability. What's important about this, and one of the arguments that I got into with this, because I was arguing a lot about this on Monday, one of the arguments I got into this is, like, say Mr. Scott wants to go run for the president one day, cleans up his act, cleans up his drinking, says, you know what, I'm going to run for the fucking presidency. And he goes out there. And the people don't like that because they don't want the common man to go back and run for the presidency. What do? They go on the news programs and come out and say, well, he said things like this in a live stream somewhere. He's engaged in insurrection. And that's all it would take. If we follow the logic that these morons are putting out here to its logical conclusion. All they have to do is go onto a news program or something and say, oh, it's an insurrection! And boom, you're disqualified from the ballot. If you follow the logic to its logical conclusion. I had somebody who claimed to be a judge. I think it was just the original poster using a burner account, honestly. Try to claim to me that this only matters in criminal, due process only matters in criminal matters. Well, that's fucking terrifying, because otherwise the government or just any other citizen can come out and say, you're an insurrectionist and you get no due process of law because it's not a criminal matter. That person, if he actually is a judge, needs to be fucking disbarred right now. We'll look at that again when we get into things I like and things that I hate. But, and this is like, they only point to Section 3. An arbitrary paragraph in Section 3. Let's look at Section 1, which mirrors the text of the 5th Amendment. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens, which would include running for a public office, by the way. Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. That is the important part of it. As a citizen government, or what's supposed to be a citizen government, let's put that proper in there right there, because they're trying to make it into a government of the elites. But as what's supposed to be a citizen government, part of liberty is your ability to go and run for a public office if you think you can go and change and you think you can beat the incumbent. Or whatever globaloid is running the fuck against you. And the state shall, nor shall the state deprive any person of life, liberty, which includes that, or property without the due process of law. Nor did not deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. They need a conviction to get him off the ballot. Plain and simple. It's part of my frustration with the Colorado decision. The amendment goes on. It says representatives shall be apportioned among several states according to their respective numbers, counting the whole number of persons in each state, excluding Indians not taxed. But when the right to vote at any election for the choice of electors for President and Vice President of the United States, representatives in Congress, the executive and judicial officers of a state, or the members of the legislature thereof is denied to any of the male inhabitants of such state, being 21 years of age, and citizens of the United States, or in any way abridged, except for participation in rebellion or other crime, the basis of representation therein shall be reduced in this proportion to which the number of such male citizens shall bear the whole number of male citizens 21 years of age in such state. Again, an amendment that's trying to keep Confederates from participating in government, essentially. However, again, you do require your due process of law. Section 4, the validity of any public debt of the United States authorized by law, which, by the way, what's interesting is they tried to use this to force through the debt ceiling suspension. The validity of the public debt of the U.S. authorized by law, including debts incurred for payment of pensions and bounties for services in suppressing insurrection or rebellion, shall not be questioned. But neither the U.S. nor shall any state assume or pay any debt or obligation incurred in aid of insurrection or rebellion against the United States, or any claims for the loss of emancipation of any slave, but all such debts, obligations, and claims shall be held illegal and void. And Section 5, the Congress shall have the power to enforce by appropriate legislation the provisions of this article. Except, again, to say that you actually participated in rebellion or insurrection would mean that you would have to be convicted by a jury of your peers of doing such. Otherwise, again, the Mogwai could be just walking down the street someday and somebody can point and say, "You're an insurrectionist," and he can't run for office anymore. That's where the due process of law is important. On the Colorado side, and this is where things get strange, and part of this is, I think, fear on the part of the judge for being a circuit court judge in a deep, deep blue state, where leftists totally don't vandalize the homes of their political opponents. That totally never happens. CNN Politics reporting Trump engaged in an insurrection, judge says, but should remain on Colorado ballot. Marshall Cohen reporting. A Colorado judge has ruled the former President Trump engaged in an insurrection on January 6, 2021. We'll come back to that in just a moment. But rejected an attempt to remove him from the state's 2024 primary ballot, finding the 14th Amendment's insurrectionist ban doesn't apply to presidents. The major decision issued Friday by Colorado District Judge Sarah Wallace comes after judges in Minnesota and Michigan also refused to remove Trump from that state's Republican primary ballots. These three high-profile challenges against Trump, which had the backing of well-funded advocacy... Oh, Jesus Christ. Have so far failed to remove him from a single ballot, with the 2024 primary season fast approaching. However, the 102-page ruling in Colorado offered a searing condemnation of Trump's conduct, labeling him as an insurrectionist who actively primed the anger of his extremist supporters and acted with specific intent to incite political violence at the directed at the Capitol. Wallace concluded that Trump engaged in an insurrection on January 6, 2021 through incitement, and says the First Amendment does not protect Trump's speech. At the ellipse that day, she also found that Trump acted with specific intent to disrupt the Electoral College certification of President Biden's electoral victory through unlawful means. This is important. This is very important. This judge, let's see if we have her name. Probably not, based on the fact that she ruled the way that the left wanted her to. I know that it's been put out in other publications, but it does not appear to be in this one here. I want to touch on this ruling for a second, because this is also important. There has been no jury conviction. A judge cannot unilaterally rule guilt on somebody unless you specifically waive your right to a trial by jury. If you do waive that, then yes, the judge can bang on the gavel and say, yeah, you're guilty. Fuck off, get out of my courtroom and go to prison. But unilaterally, unless you have been accused, indicted, tried, and convicted by a jury of your peers, or waived any step on a plea deal, anywhere in the midst of that, a judge cannot unilaterally rule your guilt. All suspects are innocent until proven guilty by a jury of their peers. But why would a judge do that? Well, because it's a squishy, wishy-washy way of not saying, I can't ban him because there's no conviction, by saying, oh no, we should definitely keep him on there because we wouldn't want the Supreme Court to look too close at these notes. But he's totally an insurrectionist. I rule thee to be an insurrectionist. Please don't burn down my house or my courtroom. And I distinctly believe that's what that was. Is like she looked at the political climate and said, oh, if I don't at least say that he's an insurrectionist, if I rule the right way, but if I don't say that he's at least an insurrectionist, they're going to come and burn my house down. What do? I know. I'll just rule that he's an insurrectionist, but that he should stay on the ballot. So, an interesting way of doing that, definitely. But, yeah, he's going to be on the ballot in all 50 states, which I think is going to come as a boon to Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley. All right, before we go into the government shutdown, it looks like we've got Yuzheng Vong has joined us over on the Twitch side. Let's see what we have going on here. Let's see. Tab number 251. Yeah, I have a lot today. Vote for Mr. Scott. Well, they'll call you an insurrectionist if you try. And apparently all a judge has to do is say, you are deemed hereby an insurrectionist. Mr. Scott says Colorado politics is incomprehensible, totally sold out and corrupt. Pure clown world. Racist, deplorable, all the words mirrored. Woke. Yuzheng Vong has joined us and says these... By the way, I should have the Rumble side up just in case somebody decides that they want to come back over and speak a little bit more freely than YouTube offers. These fucking judges are going to get smacked by the higher courts hard. Coffin v. U.S. is a long since settled law. I'm not familiar with that one. I will look that up, though. We'll do some research off air. In 1895. Yeah, that is long since settled law. But so was Roe versus Wade! Oh no! Let's see. Mr. Scott says the left can't make up anything new. They also can't meme. They just twist stuff. Yeah, I don't know. The Nightbot on the YouTube side It still works on the Twitch side, but it hasn't worked on the YouTube side for a while. They represent the stifling of creativity at the most basic form. I fought in the anti-caps war, and I did not lose. Sometimes it's just good to roll with the caps lock, apparently. Alright, let's talk about the government shutdown that wasn't. The Associated Press reporting House votes to prevent a government shutdown as GOP Speaker Johnson relies on Democrats for help. From Lisa Mascaro and Stephen Groves. The House voted to overwhelmingly on Tuesday to prevent a government shutdown after new Republican Speaker Mike Johnson. I still wonder if that's a fake name that they just hung on somebody and said, hey, let's see how many times we can get the mainstream media to say Mike Johnson. Was forced to reach across the aisle to Democrats when hard-right conservatives revolted against his plan. Johnson's proposal to temporarily fund the government into the new year passed on a bipartisan 336 to 95 tally. But 93 Republicans voted against it. It was the first time the new speaker had to force vital legislation through the House and showed a willingness to leave his right-flank Republicans behind. The same political move, by the way, that cost the last House Speaker McCarthy his job just 2 weeks ago, which will be interesting to see if Matt Gaetz is waiting in the wings with an ouster again. For now, Johnson of Louisiana appeared to track for a better outcome. His approach, which the Senate is expected to approve by the week's end, effectively pushes a final showdown over the government funding to the new year. In an election year, by the way. Make sure the government stays in operation is a matter of conscience for us all. We owe that to the American people, Johnson said earlier on Tuesday at a news conference at the Capitol. Boo! Although, of course, the biggest gripe with the government shutdown is that they will eventually open it back up. Those bastards. The new Republican leader faced the same political problem that led to McCarthy's ouster. Angry, frustrated, hard-right GOP lawmakers rejected his approach, demanded budget cuts, and voted against the plan. Rather than the applause and handshakes that usually follow the passage of a bill, several hardline conservatives animatedly confronted the speaker as they exited the chamber. Without enough support from his Republican majority, Johnson had little choice but to rely on Democrats to ensure the passage to keep the federal government running. Johnson's proposal puts forward a unique, critics say bizarre, two-part process that temporarily funds some federal agencies to January 19th and others to February 2nd. It's a continuing resolution, which is how we do budgets now, or CR that comes without any of the deep cuts conservatives have demanded all year. Because why would we ever cut spending? This is not a Democrat versus Republican thing either, by the way. It also fails to include Biden's request for nearly $106 billion for Ukraine, Israel, border security, and other supplemental funds. We're not surrendering, Johnson said, as he surrendered. After a closed-door meeting of the House Republicans Tuesday morning, vowing he would not support another stopgap. Yeah. The Donald said that 3 times in his presidency and signed every stopgap after the fact. But you have to choose fights that you can win. So they are going to keep it open right now. The Freedom Caucus has officially come out against, of course, CNN in a blurb. House Freedom Caucus officially comes out against Johnson's funding plan. From CNN's Melanie Zanona and Manu Raju. The Freedom Caucus, a group of roughly 30 hardliners, has taken an official position against Johnson's two-part government funding plan. This comes after Johnson met with the group last night in hopes of assuaging their concerns over the bill, according to a source familiar. The group advocated for a two-step approach, which Johnson agreed to, but they also wanted to spending cuts, which Johnson did not include. Rep. Ogles, a Freedom Caucus member, told CNN that Johnson's plan to extend the government funding without cuts amounts to a capitulation. We are surrendering to the Senate, he said, arguing the GOP shouldn't stand for the status quo. realistically and pragmatically. With my own biases aside, because of course, you know my bias. I want them to come back out and argue and run out of funding and shut down the government and just forget to open it back up. That's my ideal world. And all the responsibilities that the federal government has taken over by force to be kicked back to the states, where they belong. But pragmatically, I do see where Johnson is coming from off of this. Any bill that he has that has the spending cuts that he wants don't move through the Senate. And with the captive mainstream media, who has already made hit piece after hit piece about the Speaker and the Freedom Caucus, I mean, if the government shuts down, even if it's Democrats that refuse to sign it, i.e. the government funding bill and the debt ceiling bill, the original one, not the one that we finally got, even if Democrats come out and say, we will not sign anything that unless it gives us all that we want, every single thing that we want, the mainstream media will still paint the Republicans as the evil extremists that are trying to get whatever they want and not negotiate. So, pragmatically, God, this pains me to say. This is actually physically painful for me to say. Pragmatically, Mike Johnson is right. Wow, that hurt. A lot. But I do need to see a plan to get some of these spending cuts through. With that being said, in other economic news, Citigroup is on the block again. Citigroup employees brace for layoffs. Management overhaul, according to sources from Saeed Ajar, Isla Binney, and Tatiana Boutzer. Don't worry, everything is fine. Greatest economy in the world. 73 trillion new jobs. Come on, man. Citigroup employees expect the bank to announce layoffs and senior management changes on Monday as part of its biggest reorganization in decades, according to 5 sources with knowledge of the matter. The job cuts could affect thousands of staff, according to a source familiar with the situation, who was not authorized to speak publicly. Executives are also likely to announce senior management changes by email, the source said. Preparations for Monday's announcements were communicated verbally in meetings, according to a source familiar with the situation. It was not authorized to speak publicly. Some staff may be able to apply for other roles at the bank, the source said. Citigroup declined to comment. Don't worry, everything's fine. We're not in a crisis anywhere. It's all good. It's all fine. Don't worry. We just have one of the bigger banks in the country laying people off. It's no big deal. And the Senate failed in its attempt to strip lower monthly student loan payments from millions of borrowers, partially because it couldn't get past the House, by the way. From Eilert Sheffy, the Senate failed to pass a bill that would strip relief from student loan borrowers. On November 15th, the GOP Senator Bill Cassidy's bill to overturn President Biden's new SAVE income-driven repayment plan, intended to lower monthly payments from millions of student loan borrowers, failed by a vote to 49 to 50. Manchin joined Republicans in voting to pass the bill, while Republican Senator Tim Scott did not vote. This shouldn't be a partisan issue, and I'm extremely disappointed that my colleagues on the other side of the aisle chose to force hardworking Americans to foot the bill for other people's student loans, John Thune said in a statement after the bill failed to pass. However, even if the legislation did pass, it likely would not have progressed much further. The Office of Management and Budget affirmed in a November 14th statement that if the legislation made it to Biden's desk, he will veto it. And that's, again, a part of the battle that you have to do. And we'll talk a little bit more about this and things that I like, by the way, when we get down to the bottom of the show, which is approaching quickly, and we still haven't talked about the tapes. But this was kind of a throwaway bill, too. It had no chance. While it had a chance in the House, it had no chance to get past the president's desk, and you definitely don't have a veto-proof majority on this one. So, It stays and it stalls and it doesn't go anywhere. All right. For the title card of this particular episode from the Daily Mail. Speaker Johnson to release all videos from January 6th starting today and will blur out the faces of some of the rioters. Morgan Phillips, Congress reporter for DailyMail.com, reports for the DailyMail.com. Speaker Johnson announced Friday he would begin making all the January 6th footage available to the public immediately, following through on a promise to right-wing conservatives that started under former Speaker McCarthy. The clips will be posted on the committee, on the House admin's website, and much of the more than 44,000 hours of security footage from January 6th has already gone up. Around 90 hours of footage is expected Friday, and the rest over the coming months. Yeah, that's going to take a while, by the way. The clips will blur the faces of private citizens to ensure no one is targeted for retaliation of any kind, and yet people are going to get targeted for retaliation. The speaker said roughly 5% of the footage would not be posted, so as not to release sensitive security information related to the building architecture, which we will talk about later, because Jamie Raskin decided to cry. The one time, by the way, I will use a right-wing blog on this episode, because, I mean, those of you who've been watching for a while have noticed that I really only tend to use your CNNs, your Associated Press, NPRs, and things like that. Matt Gaetz had first demanded McCarthy make the footage public in negotiations to get him the Speaker's gavel. Johnson had pledged to release all the footage during his campaign for the gavel last month. The Speaker said the decision will provide millions of Americans, criminal defendants, public interest organizations, and the media an ability to see for themselves what happened that day, rather than having to rely upon the interpretations of a small group of government officials, and, by the way, the media. January 6 defendants and victims can request access to the footage that's withheld if it relates to a legal case, which, by the way, I would like to see a statistic, which I'm sure CNN will never tell us, on how many of those cases get overturned. And if you are interested in this, by the way, this tweet, this X rather, is posted in the Discord already, but this is the webpage here where you can go and access the video, CHA Subcommittee Reading Room, which I will link in the chat. But not twice. There it is on the Rumble side. Here it is for those of you on the main channels. If you want to bookmark that and go back and look at that. I've not watched any of the video yet, but you know, there's a lot of work there. But we've got 5 pages. The folder is about 22.9 gigs of video. Various videos ranging from 87 megs to 405 megs, 387 megs. I'm sure a bunch of them in between. And they're labeled as to where they're coming from as well. Time-stamped. Location, security footage. So this is one of those things where don't take the words of bloggers, podcasters, or journalists as gospel. Find all the facts and draw your own conclusions. How I used to sign off all my solo videos. All my little one-offs that I started this channel on. Here are your facts. Draw your own conclusions. Now, mind you, most people have not watched the majority of these videos. Most of them have not watched a single second of these videos, but are using them to draw themselves back further in their corners. Newsweek reporting, new January 6 video praised by Republicans. Narrative has crumbled. I'm sure 4chan is already through every second of each one of those videos already. Like, what'll take, what's 44,000 hours? Let's grab the calculator quick. I'll check that later. But I mean, 40 hours a week is 5 days at 8 hours. So that would be... well, 1,000 weeks. So 200 years worth of video if you just go 8 hours a day. But part of the fun of 4chan is the fact that you can divide that labor up among thousands, if not millions, of anonymous users. Alright. Prominent conservatives have shared footage from January 6, 2021 Capitol Selfie Fest, released by new House Speaker Mike Johnson, which one said means the January 6th committee's violent insurrection narrative has crumbled. On Friday, Johnson made around 90 hours of January 6th footage, security footage available, via a committee website. There, he said the remaining 44,000 hours of video taken from surveillance and police body cams would be posted over the coming months, fulfilling a vow he made while running for speaker. You know what I want to see from this, by the way, above anything else? Because, I mean, I've seen the walks through the lines. I've seen the police guidance. And yes, I've seen the violence at the windows that the January 6th committee wants you to focus on. The people climbing the wall. And I've seen the Stephen Ignoramus video of him just standing in the rotunda with a phone in each hand going, yo, look at this. Look at all this. Hey man, I'm just going to be one of the last people out of here. These people just have no idea what's going on. Of course, we can't let that narrative get out there because then people would believe that it's not coordinated. We've all seen the video that's out there. We all know what's happened with this. I want to see how the gallows got there. That's always been one thing that got... And it's... I mean, I say the same thing when there's a white supremacist rally. There was one of those in Madison last week. I bumped that one from the stack too, by the way. I wanted to put that one up too, but I'm like, I gotta bump this. But you never seem to see the white supremacists getting out of their car. There was that one instance with Patriot Front where they found the rider van. But you never see these people getting out of their cars and putting their gear on and before they march. And you never see them leaving the march and going and getting in their cars. We can never identify these people. But we see the march in full 1080p video every single time with the people in masks. It's the same thing with the January 6th thing and the gallows. The most surveilled city in the world. And just somehow you had a gallows mysteriously appear, poof, in front of the Capitol. No one knows how it got there. No one knows where it went. But it was right there for the photo op, and Newsweek got down low underneath the thing, in spite of the fact that a massive riot was going on, and pointed the camera up to make it look like it was full size. Let's see. Hundreds of Trump supporters stormed Congress on January 6, 2021 in a bid to make their voices heard to stop the 2020 election results being certified. The then president, editorial, in ensuing violence, 35-year-old Ashley Babbitt was murdered while she was stuck in a window, and over 100 police officers were injured. A number of short clips from the footage were shared on X, formerly Twitter, where some have received hundreds of thousands of views. Charlie Kirk, head of TPUSA, shared a 37-second clip showing officers at one end of a congressional corridor and demonstrators at the other end without any apparent conflict between the two. Kirk wrote, and just like that, the J6 Committee's violent insurrection narrative has crumbled. Let's watch. Look at all that violence. It's terrible. It's terror. Troy Nels posted a video just over a minute in length that shows demonstrators making their way across a corridor in a congressional complex while a number of police officers stand to one side. Oh, there's audio in this. Or it seems like there's audio, I should say. Look at all that violence. I mean, those police officers must be in absolute fear of their lives. The wave did it for me. Nels added, "This is what they've been hiding from you, the American people. Do you need any more proof? January 6th was not an insurrection." A third slip was shared by Citizens Free Press, a news aggregation site. It appears to show an arrested man in a corridor being uncuffed by a police officer before fist bumping him. Let's get this one opened up here. By the way, if there was an Antifa or an FBI agent that's inciting this, I would almost guess right there that it was that guy. Is one of them. Which Mr. 11 now posits that this was an inside job. However, Republican Accountability Project, which describes itself as a group of pro-democracy conservatives, so the footage was being used selectively, like everything that the January 6th committee put out. It shared a montage of Trump supporters attacking police officers mixed with the then president's speech.
You have to get your people to fight. And we fight. You'll never take back our country with weakness. We fight like hell. We will never concede. You don't concede when there's theft involved. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
So, and again, I'm only, because I have not seen all 40,000 hours, and I've seen, for the most part, the clips that have been circulating around. I'm going to come out and say, it's probably going to be an unpopular opinion, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think the truth is about halfway between what the left and the January 6th Select Committee want you to believe it is, and what the Charlie Kirks and Troy Nels want you to believe it is. Again, I saw the Stephen Ignoramus footage live of the whole thing. And didn't see a lot of violence. I just mostly saw a lot of very confused people wondering, okay, what do we do now? And I definitely, because we saw the video, I definitely think that there were people who were intent to be violent off of this whole thing. I don't think it was a coordinated effort to overthrow the government. I do think it was a riot that got out of hand, and I do think that there were people who absolutely had reprehensible behavior in this entire thing. But I do think that the truth is about halfway between. Maybe a little bit more in the favor of the people who think that it was an inside job, or people who think that it was just people being led on a tour of the Capitol. It might be a little bit more in the favor of those people, but it's somewhere between the two narratives. A roll call reporting House Republicans make January 6 footage public over Democrats' security concerns. Oh no, they're putting the footage out there. Now people are going to have a roadmap of how to get into the Capitol. Oh no, what do we do? It's the people's house, but... Justin Papp reporting. House Republicans releasing most of the security footage from the January 6 Selfie Fest. Speaker Johnson announced on Friday roughly 90 hours of footage have been posted, we know that. Eventually, around 95% of the 44,000 hours of tape will eventually be made public, excluding segments that contain sensitive security information. Let's see. Democrats on Friday began questioning the safety of the publicizing of the footage. It's unconscionable that one of Speaker Johnson's first official acts as steward of this institution is to endanger his colleagues, staff, visitors, and our country by allowing virtually unfettered access to sensitive Capitol security footage, said New York Rep. Joseph D. Morell, ranking member of the House Admin Committee, that he is doing so over the strenuous objections of the security professionals within the Capitol Police is outrageous. This is not transparency, this is dangerous and irresponsible. And the truth might actually come out. Mogwai was the tour guide that day. On your left, Speaker Nancy's office. On your right is a couple screwing on Marjorie Taylor Greene's carpet, which could be taken as even dirtier than what he meant it right there. Yes, lots of agrobots exist. A spokesperson for the Capitol Police declined to comment. Another member of the House Admin Committee, Barry Loudermilk, has used his position as chair of his oversight subpanel to reevaluate the conclusions drawn by the Democrat-led Select Committee on the January 6th attack, Selfie Fest, which voted unanimously at the end of the 117th Congress to refer former President Trump for federal prosecution. Raskin, too. This is from Red State, which is, of course, not green check verified. Raskin cries about Mike Johnson releasing January 6 footage, claims it gives a diagram to insurrectionists. From Jeff Charles. Vong says, oh, the humanity, the truth might come out. Won't somebody think of the children? That's right. Democrats are now beginning to deal with the fallout of Speaker Johnson's decision to release all the footage related to the January 6 Selfie Fest at the U.S. Capitol. While folks on the right lauded the move as a bold step towards transparency, Democrats are crying foul and already tried to salvage their narrative that the event was some huge plan to take over the U.S. government. During an appearance on CNN, Jamie Raskin, one of the more prominent House Democrats who spearheaded the Select Committee to use the Selfie Fest as a political cudgel against former President Trump and his supporters, chimed in on the news. Yes, I understand this is totally, completely editorialized, and I call CNN out for it too. But you did get a disclaimer before I started reading this article. And CNN is green check verified. Red State at least can hide behind the fact that they're not when they editorialize. The same with the Associated Press. Host Wood Blitzer asked Raskin why he believes Johnson agreed to release the footage. The lawmaker responded by claiming he's clearly on the run from the extreme MAGA caucus, Chip Roy, and the strongest pro-Trump elements. Which, I mean, that's their story changing in and of itself again, because remember, Mike Johnson was supposed to be the architect of this whole thing. Now he's on the run from people who just want it released. They can't get their stories straight. Raskin continued, intimating that Johnson is close to being deposed, as was Speaker McCarthy, which, I mean, that's not entirely inaccurate either, because he did cave on spending. Let's listen.
Joining us, as you know, this is footage that your committee decided not to release. So what's your reaction to the Speaker Johnson deciding to do so, and why do you think he's doing it?
Well, on the latter question, Speaker Johnson is clearly on the run from the the extreme MAGA caucus, Chip Roy, and the strongest pro-Trump elements. I mean, you know, he was only able to get through his continuing resolution proposal because of Democratic votes, and I think they're saying he's got 2 strikes of 3 they're going to give him. So he's already looking at a motion to vacate. So this was clearly an effort to placate the right wing, which has been making this absurd demand for a very long time. And so now we have, on a totally unilateral partisan basis, the Republicans caving in and opening up to the world what they allowed Tucker Carlson to come see. Obviously, Tucker Carlson did his best to torture out of tens of thousands of hours of footage some kind of concocted story, which of course went nowhere. We went through all of that. We had more than 1,000 witnesses come and talk to the January 6th committee, all of it on a bipartisan basis in search of the truth, not in search of lies. And most of the witnesses, of course, were Republicans, people in the Trump administration, people in the Trump family, and we delivered a complete report. Beyond the partisan nature of it, it's truly a security risk what they're doing. The reason why the Capitol Police have opposed releasing tens of thousands of hours from every House office building, every Senate office building, every part of the Capitol is because it's like giving a diagram to future insurrectionists and terrorists and anybody who wants to invade our body. So if the Speaker thinks it can be done safely or securely, why doesn't he rely on the Capitol Police to determine what should be given out and what shouldn't be given out? Because that's the principal concern here, which is security.
Well, no, the principal concern is your narrative is going to crumble as it goes. Again, a lot of the right-wing pundits, I will come out and admit full off, because I am an independent, I'm not a right-winger, that a lot of the right-wing pundits are selectively picking clips out of these 90 hours that are made available because they forward the narrative that this was just a guided tour and the government was behind the whole thing everywhere. Just like with the select committee that Jamie Raskin sat on, used selectively edited clips to forward a narrative that this was a violent insurrection in which the people, everybody that was there, was coordinated to come and take over the government and wrench it away from the will of the people. Why don't you just put all the video out there and let the people decide for themselves? And I know why Raskin doesn't want it all out there. Because they might decide wrong and incorrectly from the narrative that he put out. Let's see. Fox News reporting, Mike Lee calls for investigation of January 6th committee after tapes released deliberately hid from us. Kyle Norris reporting, Mike Lee is calling for an investigation of the now defunct January 6th committee, accusing former and current lawmakers who served on the committee of deliberately hiding some of the footage from the Capitol riots. But we all know that, because we only saw a grand total in all the hearings of, I knew the statistic at one point. We only saw a grand total of, I think it was 90 minutes of footage. And there are 44,000 hours of footage out there. So of course stuff was hidden. Deliberately, because it didn't forward a narrative. Lee's comments came after House Speaker Johnson began releasing more than 40,000 hours of footage, highlighting the release of the footage in a series of posts to X. Lee called into question the character of the former Republican representatives, Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. Well, I mean, anybody who's ever run across Adam Kinzinger's posts on X already knows the quality of his character, and it's, well, let's be completely fair, it's lacking. Liz Cheney, with the exception of a couple different little instances on news blurbs, has actually remained largely silent, which is a gift to the rest of the world. I would like to see an investigation into this, though. Absolutely. Cheney and Kinzinger, Lee wrote in another post on X, were people who helped hide the January 6 tapes and are cut out of the same cloth as those who will tell you that FISA 702 must be reauthorized without reforms because search warrants require too much effort. Yeah, that sounds like an old guard Republican to me. Democrats are saying that this will carry their narrative no matter what. Democrat rep says January 6 tape will prove it was an insurrection. And that actually might be the case. I'm not unwilling to say that this might backfire on Mike Lee and this might prove that there was an insurrection. I don't think it's likely, but it might. We have to get all 40,000 hours out there so we can all decide for ourselves. It's entirely a possibility that it backfires on Mike Lee. But we won't know until it's all out there. I'm going to lean more to the fact that it's probably going to come out somewhere in the middle. A bunch of agitators and diehards try to get in and make their voices heard, but for the most part, it was people who were basically on a tour looking around thinking, what the hell do we do? Lauren Irwin reporting. Frederica Wilson of Florida went on the defensive amid the Republicans' release of the footage, saying the tapes from the attack on the Capitol will prove that it was an insurrection. I was in the Capitol on January 6th, and all those extra hours of footage will show that January 6th was an insurrection. Wilson posted on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter. It will reveal thousands of extreme MAGA Republicans entering the Capitol illegally and violently in an attempt to overturn the 2020 election, period. Again, if you are so certain that this is going to be the case, then yes, you should be the biggest advocate in the world for getting this out here, because it will forward your narrative if what you just said right there is true. But given the fact that you guys don't want the full tapes out there, tells me that there's something in there that you don't want the world to see. The Donald weighing in on this one, because it's a day that ends in Y and the Donald has Truth Social. Trump commends Johnson for having the courage to release the January 6th tapes publicly. Sarah Polis for The Hill reporting. Former President Trump praised Mike Johnson on Friday after Republicans began to release footage from the January 6th selfie fest at the Capitol. The tapes shared by the Committee on House Admin show the Capitol premise. We know that. During the selfie fest, so far 90 hours have been made public. Congratulations to Speaker of the House Mike Johnson for having the courage and fortitude to release all the January 6th tapes, which will explicitly reveal what really happened on January 6th, Trump wrote in Friday Truth Social post. This decision will provide millions of Americans, criminal defendants, public interest organizations, and the media an ability to see for themselves what happened that day. Rather than having to rely on the interpretation of a small group of government officials, Johnson said in the announcement, based. So that's the January 6 tapes in a nutshell. In a video that I admit have not watched yet. I'm going to skip this one just because I'm going to wind up on a rant with this one. But essentially this is deposition and supposed proof that there was absolutely nothing went wrong in Arizona, honk honk. And the real insurrection is what McConnell certified for that. But my rant on that went on to the fact that, okay, well, yes, you have a Republican legislature in Arizona. You can write the law, but Katie Hobbs is still going to veto it. It doesn't change what happened in 2020. It didn't change anything. Once Biden put his hand on the Bible and said, I promise to uphold the thing, man. And so help me, that guy that I'm going to meet pretty soon. As soon as he did that, there was no way to overturn any of this. You could find fraud in all 50 states. That doesn't exist. YouTube, don't ban me. But you could find that in all 50 states and come out with a 537 vote landslide for Trump once all the real votes are recounted. And because Biden put his hand in the Bible and said, I swear to uphold the thing, man, there's nothing you can do about it until the next election cycle goes up. You can impeach him, but it goes nowhere because there aren't enough senators out there to make it go through, except to go out and change the laws in the states where you found the problems and hope that a Democrat governor lets them go through. That's what I need to hear from Arizona. Is your plan to write a legislation that prevents what you found in this video and get it past Katie Hobbs' desk. That's what I need to hear out of Arizona right now, not, oh, Trump totally won the and things that I can't say on YouTube. Well, legally I can say them on YouTube, but when they do with the retro ban and go back and retroactively enforce rules when they make it illegal to say again on YouTube, and they go back through everybody's video and finds the instances where people said the naughty thing again and ban them based on something they said while it was within the TOS, that kind of thing. Let's talk Israel and Gaza. Let's get the live chat back up here. Mr. Scott is taken off for the night. Uh-oh. Got some other things going on here. Mogwai says, sir, will you stop smelling the ladies? Hey, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. President. There would be a claymation celebrity death match of Pelosi versus Biden by now. I have a friend named the R-rated conservative who's actually working on something like that, and I have not seen the videos. He's shared the videos with me. I do have them queued up to watch at a later moment, but with the family emergency that happened last week, I have not had a chance to do so yet. And to close out the gag, Trump would show up and feed Nancy into the I can't say that on YouTube. Mogwai says, I smell a ham sandwich that's about to get an indictment. Nice. Why even read this drivel? To show both sides. And Mr. Scott says, be awesome to each other. Well, thank you, Mr. Scott. All right, on the Israel front, we've got a little bit left before we go into things I like and things that I hate. Israeli government meets to decide on deal for Hamas to free some hostages. Everything in this segment, by the way, is fog of war. But we are going to close out on, I think, the Musk thing. So this is from Nidal al-Mughrabi and Mayin Lubel. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Tuesday asked his government to accept a deal for Palestinian Hamas militants to free some hostages in Gaza in exchange for a multi-day truce, even as the death of a hostage in captivity was announced. Officials from Qatar, which has been mediating negotiations, as well as the US, Israel, and Hamas, have for days been saying a deal was imminent. Before gathering with his full government, Netanyahu met on Tuesday with his war cabinet and wider national security cabinet over the deal, Hamas is believed to be holding more than 200 hostages taken when its fighters surged in Israel on October 7th. The Israeli Prime Minister said the intervention of the U.S. President Biden has helped to improve the deal, so it included more hostages for fewer concessions. But Netanyahu said Israel's broader mission has not changed. Yeah, according to Netanyahu, occupation and annexation is imminent at this point. We are at war and will continue the war until we achieve our goals to destroy Hamas, return all our hostages, and ensure that nobody in Gaza can threaten Israel, he said in a recorded message at the start of the latest government meeting. So, will they get released? I don't spend a lot of time on the Israeli war just based on the fog of war thing, and I did the same thing with Ukraine. It was a little bit harder at the time because it was a daily show when Ukraine broke out, and that was leading the news 3 days a week. The Associated Press reporting, Israel reveals signs of Hamas activity at Shifa, but a promised command center remains elusive. Joseph Fetterman, 3 weeks ago, the Israeli military unveiled a detailed 3D model at Gaza's Shifa hospital, showing a series of underground installations that said it was part of an elaborate Hamas command and control center, under the territory's largest healthcare center. Days after taking control of the hospital, the military has yet to unveil its purported center, but it has released video of weapons allegedly seized inside the hospital, a tunnel running through the complex, and videos appearing to show Hamas militants dragging hostages through the hospital's hallways. Israel says there will be much more to come. What Israel finds or fails to find could play a large part in its efforts to rally in international support for its war against Hamas. But again, the other side of that is, the Associated Press has an agenda, Israel has an agenda, the US government has an agenda, and we're not going to know the full extent of Hamas, whether it's more or less than what Israel's saying, for decades to come. And even then, it's going to be tainted by the agenda that's put forward. The only people who know how much Hamas is being involved in this are the people who are on the ground at the time. In what may bring us into war, Israeli-linked ship hijacked by Yemen's Houthi rebels, with 25 hostages being taken. Briefly from The Hill, Miranda Nazaro. An Israeli-linked cargo ship in the Red Sea was hijacked by Yemen's Houthi rebels who took 25 crew members hostage. According to Israeli officials, a spokesperson for Yemen's Houthi group confirmed Sunday that the rebels captured the ship and took the crew members as hostage due to the ship's ties to Israel. The Yemeni armed forces reiterate that they're warning to all ships belonging to or dealing with the Israeli enemy that they will become a legitimate target for armed forces. Houthi military spokesman Yahya Sari wrote in a statement on X, formerly known as Twitter. Now, we have video, of course, of the hijacking of the civilian ship, which is in amazing detail and close up, by the way. Let's watch. Man, the production values are just amazing. It's almost like this might be wartime propaganda. And in true propaganda fashion, Fox News reporting, U.S. official says Iran could be behind Yemen's Houthi rebel seizure of Red Sea cargo ship. Let's see. The U.S. wants to get into war with Iran. And suddenly Iran is the prime suspect for funding a Yemeni takeover of an Israeli ship. And it's a U.S. official coming out and saying this too. I smell propaganda. An interesting one from left-wing Slate, of all places. The Squad is about to fight for its political life. Alexander Salmon reporting. For Slate, which is also not Green Check verified. This is an op-ed, actually. One of the biggest, bitterest, and most expensive political battles of the 2024 election cycle has emerged. The American-Israel Public Affairs Committee, one of the most powerful and best-funded influence operations in Washington, is planning to go all out to knock the famed Squad. The small group of highly visible and popular progressive legislators of color, most of them women, out of office. The most outspoken and unapologetically leftist contingent of the Democrat Party in national office, the Squad has been vocal in its criticism of Israel's retaliatory assault in Gaza following the October 7th massacre of Israelis by Hamas. Members of the group have prominently pushed a ceasefire resolution in Congress and now has 18 signatories. Their position on the issues are hardly radical. A recent Data for Progress poll, which is totally not biased, found that 66% of Americans support a ceasefire as do 80% of Democrats. But AIPAC has trained its attention on these members to make an example of them and has spent heavily against a few of them before. Now, the problem with this, of course, is the problem that Biden has to face, but also these particular lawmakers have to face. It's really easy on the right side of the aisle to bring up and force support for Israel. Because with the exception of the fringe minority of the people that the news media tells us represent the entirety of the GOP, most Republicans, with their ties to Christianity, do side with Israel on this. It's really easy to sell Israel's side on this to Republicans. And they're in an almost 99% unified front, with the exception of the cousin fuckers in Alabama. But the political divide is deeper on the Democrat side, and Biden has to walk a tightrope on this one to make sure that the leftmost flank of his party, typically the college students that he's supposed to be pandering to with student loan debt relief, will still vote for him, even though he failed on student debt relief and is now seemingly capitulating to Israel in this particular situation. Or capitulate to them and lose the pro-Israel side of his caucus. And it's about 60-40 in favor of Israel in the Democrat Party. Maybe 70-30, but enough to where if he loses the support of the Palestinian side of the argument, his caucus and his political career are toast. You see Republican supermajorities if those people don't come out to vote. Which is part of where AIPAC is coming in on this and making life extremely difficult. Meanwhile, as he does the tightrope here, Biden threatens to visa bans for extremists who attack Palestinians in the West Bank, calls again for a two-state solution. Gee, where have we heard this before? Unvetted and extremists from places that make it hard to get documents in predominantly Muslim countries. Wouldn't this be what the news media called a Muslim ban back in 2017, 2018? Eileen Grafe and Priscilla Alvarez and Kanita Ayer reporting. President Brandon called for a stop to violence against Palestinians in the West Bank in an op-ed that he totally wrote himself, published on Saturday, signaling the U.S. is prepared to issue visa bans. Which again, isn't that a Muslim ban? Lindsey Graham volunteers as gag for the media, says the Mogwai. This much is clear, man. A two-state solution is the only way to ensure the long-term security of both Israel and the Palestinian people, Biden wrote in the Washington Post, which is fine, by the way. I'm not against a two-state solution as long as the U.S. Army is not enforcing it. The problem that comes with this, of course, comes from the fact that the second state is dependent on the first state for its electricity and water, which, as I said at the beginning of this entire conflict, is a stupid idea. The president's warning comes amid concerns over Israel violating the visa waiver program, which allows eligible travelers to apply to enter the U.S. without a visa. Israel joined the program in late October. I've been empathetic with Israel's leader that the extremist violence against Palestinians in the West Bank must stop, man, and those committing the violence must be held accountable. The U.S. is prepared to take our own steps, including issuing visa bans against extremists attacking... Okay, I totally read this wrong. What? Biden putting visa bans on Israelis? What? Okay, we're going to put this on for later because I need to reanalyze that because that completely changes that narrative. Holy crap. We're going to come back to that one next week. I need to look at that from a completely different political avenue right now. You've seen my mind blown mid-show. And our last story for the day, talking about a little bit about Elon. Apple, Disney, and other media companies pause advertising on X after Elon Musk boosted an anti-Semitic tweet. From Jonathan Vanyan. Now, I've read the lawsuit, and it does not appear that that is what caused the thing to happen. Apple and Disney have paused online advertising campaigns on X after Elon Musk said he agreed with social media posts accusing Jewish communities of pushing hatred against whites, according to sources familiar with both companies' moves. The post I don't think they're going to put it up here. First, Musk drew attention and agreed with an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory, then directly accused Jewish communities the nonprofit ADL, and minorities of what he called anti-white messaging and views without giving examples to support his accusations. But they won't show the tweet. Warner Brothers, Paramount, and Lionsgate are also suspending campaigns on the social media service, spokespeople for the company confirmed. Additionally, a spokesperson for Comcast, which owns Bravo and Xfinity, is also the parent company of CNBC, said Friday that it's pausing online advertising campaigns and the real-time messaging service. Apple's move was first reported by Axios and Disney's by the New York Times, a former newspaper. The iPhone maker was singled out in a report published this week by the nonprofit group Media Matters as one of a handful of big companies, including IBM, Bravo, and Oracle, and Infinity, whose online X ads were displayed next to content that touts Adolf Hitler and his Nazi party. Apple, Disney, and Oracle did not respond to a request for comment. The X Out Hate Group originally urged the companies to suspend their online advertising when Musk insinuated that he would file a defamation suit against the ADL, alleging the ADL was trying to kill his platform by falsely accusing it and me of being anti-Semitic. Because that's pretty much the only move that they have at this point. Now, in a direct response, people like, I know the Daily Wire has said they're going to do a huge ad buy. Tim Pool's doing a huge ad buy. But Mashable reports right-wing influencers pledged to bail out Elon after Apple and Disney and others suspend advertising on X. From Matt Binder. Apple, Disney, IBM, NBC, and Sony. These are just some of the big companies that have suspended their advertising on X over the past few days. Since then, numerous right-wing media companies and influencers have come together and pledged support for Elon Musk, promising to advertise on X in order to make up for the revenue loss from fleeing business. Last week, Elon voiced his support for an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory that claims Jewish groups are replacing white people with immigrants. Musk's endorsement of this conspiracy on X also coincided with a Media Matters report that showed how big brands' ads were appearing on pro-Nazi and pro-Hitler content, which, from what I understand from the ad, they were going out of their way to specifically show that. Seth Dillon reports they attack Musk because they hate freedom, and they hate freedom because it threatens their power to control the narrative. It's really that simple. On Saturday, Seth Dillon, CEO of conservative satire website Babylon Bee, announced that his company would spend $250,000 to advertise on X in order to support free speech. Dillon's support of Musk shouldn't be surprised. Babylon Bee's suspension on then Twitter was one of the reasons why Musk was interested in acquiring the platform. Tim Pool also joined. Timcast is officially joining Seth Dillon and the Babylon Bee in their effort to support X and Musk's efforts. Timcast.com will commit $250,000 towards ad buys on X over the next few months. Soon more right-wing figures and companies followed with pledges of their own, albeit much less than the amounts that Dillon and Poole were promising. Benny Johnson pledged $50,000. The Quartering donut operator Gavin McInnes and Elijah Schaefer pledged smaller amounts ranging from $2,500 to $40,000. Andrew Tate pledged the largest amount, saying he'd give Musk $1 million a month without even running ads for his own endeavors. As of publishing, a total of 8 right-wing media figures and groups have pledged $1,627,500 in ad buys on X. That includes Tate's possibly unserious offer. In addition, the majority of those pledges are over the course of multiple months, so that amount is not per month. So, well, if you believe in something, then yeah, you go and throw money at it. But the reaction, and this is where we're going to close and go into things I like and things that I hate. Musk threatens thermonuclear lawsuit against Media Matters from Fox Business. Timothy Narazi reporting. Elon Musk is threatening to file a thermonuclear lawsuit against Media Matters, claiming the organization completely misrepresented the real user experience on X in an attempt to harm the social media platform. The issue stems from multinational corporation IBM's decision to pull the ads from the platform after Media Matters claimed ads from the tech giant and pro-Nazi X posts had shown up adjacent to each other. The nonprofit said other companies' ads had similar experiences. The split-second court opens on Monday. X Corp will be filing a thermonuclear lawsuit against Media Matters and all those who colluded with this fraudulent attack on our company, Musk wrote on Twitter on Saturday. He added, "The board, the donors, the network of dark money, all of them." An executive at X previously told Fox Business on the social media platform systems was not intentionally placing a brand actively next to this type of content, nor is a brand actively trying to support this content with placement. Let's follow the people on X, in this case Media Matters Research, that was going to actively look for this content. That's how user targeting works, the ex-executive said. As it relates to the platform itself, the control settings are in place there for every user, every brand. So, and I mean, this is like what Media Matters is alleging is that you're just served up this stuff, whether you follow it or not, like you are with left-wing causes. I don't know. I'm considered to be right-wing, and I never see Hitler adjacent or pro-neo-Nazi stuff on X. And of course, when I'm on my computer at home here, I have ad blocker up so I don't get any of the ads anyway. But I never see the stuff, so I can never have an ad served next to it. So literally, unless you're following these accounts, which it appears that Media Matters made a dummy account and did, then you're not seeing the ads next to these kinds of responses. Unless you specifically follow them, and of course, they get served up to you. Because the algorithm favors more of you getting content from people you disagree with, whether you follow them or not, because it drives engagement. Where this goes, I actually don't know. I think Musk has I think he's got a case. But it's going to be interesting to see what district this lands in and who the judge winds up being in it. We'll see. Alright, let's do rules of acquisition, and we'll do a couple things I like and a couple things I hate and head out of here for the night. We have a way shorter things I like and things I hate segment today than we did last week. We had a ton of stuff last week. Alright, rules of acquisition. Every week we go through one of the Ferengi rules of acquisition, the basis of their religion. The Ferengi being a hyper-capitalistic society, and myself being also hyper-capitalistic. We read one of these rules, break down how it gets used in canon or non-canon, in the case of Star Trek Online, and how we can use it in our real lives. So, we left off on the 227th, no, the 229th rule of acquisition. So the 235th rule of acquisition is what we move on to. Comes from Mission Gamma Twilight, a DS9 novel that I've not read myself. But it's an interesting take on the height of a Ferengi. The 235th rule of acquisition is duck. Death is tall. Now we go back and there are other rules of acquisition that point out that dead men make no deals. Dead men have no profit. So self-preservation is a cornerstone of the Ferengi. They are kind of fearful, even in canon. You see them, they tried to make them the actual primary antagonist of Next Generation, and they were just too comical to be taken seriously. And they are kind of cowardly, and most of them are kind of stupid. A few of them rise to the top of their society, but for the most part, they're kind of dumb. But self-preservation is a big part of their society, and, well, Even Mr. Miyagi said, the best block is to run away. So don't be afraid to duck out of the way, to move away, because if you're dead, you can't earn profit. Duck. Death is tall. Alright, let's do some things I like and some things I hate. Speaking of Trek, I'm going to get some flack for this one, but I started to do a timeline canon run of all the Star Trek series, and I'm starting with Enterprise, obviously, because canonically, that is the first. If you consider the first Contact movie to be in its proper canonical placement after Next Generation, rather than before Enterprise happened. So I started this past week on Star Trek Enterprise. I just finished up the first season. We're going to watch the trailer for it in just a moment, but just some thoughts on what it is. First off, of course, I went into Enterprise knowing the criticisms of that and the big creative liberties that they took for Enterprise. I mean, there are people that come out and say that it's completely non-canonical. I don't believe that. I believe that it is in an alternate timeline, and they say the same thing about Discovery at this point, which I've never seen. Wish me luck, because that one's next, and I hear it's terrible. But as far as Enterprise goes, I mean, a lot of what they did was have an excuse to get Jolie and Blaylock in scantily clad and have the men of the series without shirts on. They took a lot of creative liberty of that in the first season. And Scott Bakula, of course, being the star of the show, that is almost entirely about time travel on top of that, which makes it even weirder. A lot of things are changed, of course. Phase weapons were supposed to only be introduced in canon in the original series. Except in this series, they're introduced in this. The first Enterprise was supposed to be the NCC 1701. This show changes the canon and makes an Enterprise that goes before that, the NX-01. But if you can step away from that, if you can step away from the canonical purism and actually enjoy the show, it's not bad. They rely a little bit too much on time travel for my taste. It's not terrible, though. It's worth a watch. You have to suspend a lot of your canonical purity to get through it. Otherwise, you're just going to throw stuff at the screen the whole time. But it's not bad. It's not terrible. And I've seen it before, so let's watch the trailer for Star Trek Enterprise.
These Klingons, they're anxious to get their man back. Fine. I can have my ship ready to go in 3 days. We'll take him back home. Alive.
What about your crew? Your comm officers in Brazil. You haven't selected a medical officer yet.
3 days, that's all I need.
Don't screw this up.
Think of it. You'd be the first human to talk to these people. Do you really want someone else to do it?
This confirms that I was transferred to your command at 0800 hours. Reporting for duty.
Wow. Whoa! Takes practice.
Today, we are about to cross a new threshold. For nearly a century, we've waded ankle deep in the ocean of space. Now it's finally time to swim.
Imagine it. Thousands of inhabited planets at our fingertips. And we'll be able to explore those strange new worlds and seek out new life and new civilizations. This engine will let us go boldly where no man has gone before.
Your translators have been programmed for Rigelian. However, you'll encounter numerous other species. Many of them are known to be impatient with newcomers.
They're called phase pistols. They have 2 settings, stun and kill. It will be best not to confuse them.
Enterprise needs its captain! Give me the weapon!
I said go!
situation must be analyzed logically.
I don't remember the captain analyzing anything coming back for you on that roof.
That is a specious analogy.
Let's go.
Like I said, Brandon Braga played very fast and loose with the canon in this show. Absolutely did. Is it entertaining? Yes. Is it going to piss off the purists? Yes. Does Jolene Blalock look good in a tight skin suit? Yes. Give it a shot. I enjoy it. Alright, some other things that I like. This argument that went through here, and I don't, again, typically go and brag on what I do on X, but I definitely put this one in her place here. This was where I was talking about earlier, where they sit here and do nothing but tell you about the third section of the 14th Amendment. Don't bother with the fifth, don't bother with the first section. And a nice long argument with Amy Resistor, who has the blue wave in her profile, which indicates a worship of the government, who again tells me that even Trump lawyers say that he didn't need a conviction. I don't give a damn what those morons who would actually represent Trump have to say about the law. Our legal foundation is built on due process of law in this country, and you cannot be deprived of life, liberty, or property without going through it. And yes, liberty includes running for an office in a government that's supposed to be run by the people for the people, even though it hasn't been for years. So she had to wander away, and my friend Papa Palpatine came in and pointed out that I don't even like Trump. And I cooked this woman on general principle. Thank you, Papa Palpatine, for that. My favorite one off of this was saying, what else do I worship? I'm not on Facebook. I guess I'm at liberty to drive through a red light, and that doesn't mean I won't get a ticket. To which I pointed out, yeah, but you'll have your opportunity to fight your ticket in a court of law. Because you have due process of law. You can just pay the fine, or you can go and fight it. And you can request a jury trial for a traffic ticket. Most people don't know that, but you can. Other things that I like. Brian Tyler Cohen complaining. What we should be using as the standard. Brian Tyler Cohen saying, under Republican control, Congress is now on track to have the least productive year since the Great Depression. They have only written 21 laws this year. Well, I'm going to tell you right off the bat. I'm going to say that that is 21 laws too many. How can we get that number to 0? And he even linked the HuffPo article complaining about this as well, the least productive Congress since the Great Depression. Based. Jonathan Nicholson, with only 21 bills making it into law halfway into November, the 118th Congress, controlled by Republicans in the House and Democrats in the Senate, is the most sluggish pace to make law since Congress that met during 1931 and 1932. Back then, Hoover was president, and the Great Depression had started, and talking movies were still new. Again, I like this. This is a good thing. How can we have fewer laws in the next Congress? And by the way, Brian Tyler Cohen got roundly rebuked for this post, which is good, because we don't need that much government intervention in our lives. Now we'll do a few things that I hate. Thing that I hate number 1 comes on the cusp of the culture war, which I've been wading back into, by the way, on Quora. I haven't done it on YouTube yet, mostly because I know how strictly they guard the laws and the rules. about traditionalism, and I'm very much traditionalist, but new dating phenomenon proves traditional relationships are over. Rebecca Scanlan for news.com.australia, again, this is coming out of Australia for the New York Post reporting. Meet a man, get married, have a family. That's the timeline women have historically been sold as the most successful pathway to a happy life. But despite that messaging being shoved down our throats at every conceivable opportunity, women have had enough. New data have revealed that women are sick of the constant pressure to follow traditional relationship timelines, with 1 in 3 now stating they're no longer focused on achieving the societal milestones. The findings uncovered in the 24 annual dating report from Bumble shows women are pushing back, instead of prioritizing finding the right partner instead of rushing to hit outdated goals. Women are increasingly looking around and wondering why they feel they need to follow an outdated rulebook when it comes to their dating journeys and relationship milestones, Lucille McCart, the dating app's APAC communications director, told news.com.au. In fact, 31% of women say they're no longer focused on adhering to a traditional relationship timelines and milestones, so timelines are out and choosing your own path is in. Now, reason that I hate this is, again, it comes down to the fact that when they're not focused on going on a timeline, that means that they only want the right person. They'll run around and do their thing forever and ever, but only settle down if they get the traditional Chad. Instead of actually looking to propagate the species and making some concessions to somebody who may be more compatible, but isn't that hard-body rock star with a $100,000 income. And that's what it is that they're coming up for. And with things like Bumble, too. I mean, that's what it focuses on, is the top 10% get all the ass. And they don't have to worry about going and settling down for anything right away, because they just move on to the next one when some disagreement comes up. I don't know. And I use these stupid sites from time to time. But there's not quality out there, I can say that. Unfortunately, I made it to 39 and not married, which means that most anybody who's at a quality point in their life is already hitched. That's age appropriate for me, at least. And they're calling it an exciting phenomenon, too. Well, it'll probably be really exciting when you're 50 and alone, so. And that's as deep on a YouTube channel as I'm going to go into the culture war, but I will be adding this on either in blog format or on Quora somewhere, so look for that. Other things that I hate. An op-ed from the New York Times. The startling evidence on learning loss is in. This is an editorial in the New York Times pointing out the fact that while we had everything locked down, most of your public school kids lost out on reading comprehension skills, math skills, and science skills because they couldn't go in and practice what they were learning in the labs, and a lot of them weren't even paying attention to what was going on in the classroom to begin with, which is something that was said to you at the time that this all happened. Now, the homeschool kids, they took full advantage of this while this was going on, because they already had practice. They already knew what to do in a situation like this. But your average two-parent working household that had both parents out of the house and the kids at the Zoom class at the time, they sat their kid in front of the computer, and I mean, if those kids really wanted to get an education, they would just mute the class, the Zoom call, and watch Contemporary in the background, but I digress on that. But yes, we all know that this was a detriment without having a structure somewhere. Again, of course, if the structure was in place for these kids to convert to homeschool while they were doing their Zoom classes, there would have at least been a structure there. But once you've completely unstructured the system, yes, your learning is going to suffer. And we told you that right from the beginning. And now the New York Times is coming up and actually catching up on that. It's amazing how fast the narrative shifts once the numbers start to actually come in. A couple more things that I hate. I'm gonna skip that one. I'm gonna skip that one too. Well, we know Jeremy Boring is a neocon in the tank for Nikki Haley, so of course he's going to jump up to try to defend her call to get people to use their real names on social media. Nobody had any question about that one. The post-millennial reporting editor-in-chief of left-wing news outlet The Recount is charged with child pornography. Now, he is charged, he's only indicted. All suspects are innocent until proven guilty, but I am starting to sense and see a pattern with this, of course. It's these major leftoids out there seem to always wind up in these things. I don't know how this trial is going to go. I don't know if he's going to plead out. I don't know if he's going to take a lesser sentence. If he's going to go to trial, if he's even going to go to prison for this, but editor-in-chief of The Recount, Slade Somer, who held his post until last month, has been charged with possession and distribution of child porn en masse. Somer was released on $100,000 bail on Monday. The news movement, which owns The Recount, told the New York Post that Somer is no longer editor-in-chief of The Recount following a company restructure exercise in early October to focus on editorial and commercial plans. Somer allegedly had hundreds of child porn images and videos. All suspects are innocent until proven guilty. Remember, when he was arrested on October 18th in Otis, Mass. On Friday, he was additionally alleged by prosecutors to have himself filmed a video which he was instructing the minor to... Alright, this guy's wood chipper fuel. Allegedly, of course. All suspects are innocent until proven guilty. The arrest came weeks after authorities had seized his electronics by a search warrant. He pleaded not guilty to the charges. If convicted, Somer faces 10 years for dissemination and 5 years for possession, which seems really, really small and narrow. So, we'll see what happens with the trial. Alright, second to last one that I hate today comes, of course, from Rob Reiner. And they are pulling out all the stops on their election propaganda again. Rob Reiner tweeting out, "A vote for no labels is a vote for Trump. A vote for Kennedy is a vote for Trump. A vote for Cornel West is a vote for Trump. A vote for Jill Stein is a vote for Trump. The only vote not for Trump is a vote for Biden." Because they never give up that stupid tire line. And they never will. It's a cult. The biggest fear, and they did this under W. They did this under HW. They did this with Dole. They did this with Romney. They always pull this out. They always come out and say, not voting is voting for the, what, insert generic Republican name here. And the MAGA people did this too, by the way. In the wake of 2020. And even coming into 2016. A vote for Gary Johnson is a vote for Hillary. I heard numerous times. But if you don't feel comfortable voting for one of these people, don't fucking do it. I'm telling you right off the bat. If you don't feel comfortable voting for one of these morons, don't do it. Plain and simple. It's not a binary thing. It's not a thing where you have to throw a glowing endorsement over something. If you don't like these, I'm not voting top of the ticket. I've already said that. The Donald spent us into oblivion. And Biden is a doddering moron. I don't know who the LP is going to put up, but I don't believe in their platform. And I think Jill Stein, Bobby Kennedy, and Cornel West are completely out of their minds. That top of the ticket is staying blank for me. Alright, and last thing I hate before we head out of here for the night. An article that I ran across here for somebody saying you shouldn't be driving over 100 miles an hour and your car shouldn't let you. Advocating for more government control into how fast it is that you can drive. Now, I mean, most people know that I like to drive fast, obviously. And I did the calculations with my truck with the way that it's geared and overdrives, and mechanically, the pickup that I own now can go over 200 miles an hour. If I remember correctly, when I did the calculations, it can go to 213 before it hits red line. Now, the tires and the steering gear won't go 213. I can tell you that right off the bat. Those tires will shred before you get to 213. Those tires probably won't make it to 150 because they're load rated. It's a truck. They're made to hold a heavy load, not necessarily hold high speed on the highway. So no, I don't have the safe equipment to do so, but let's read just a little bit of this here. From Dave Zipper. The traffic signal on North Las Vegas North Commerce Street had been red for at least 29 seconds, but the Challenger did not slow down. Instead, it flew through the intersection with Cheyenne Avenue at 103 miles an hour, almost 3 times the 35 mile an hour speed limit. Carnage ensued. Well, that person was a moron to begin with. If you're driving 103 in a 35 mile an hour zone, that's natural selection. The crash that occurred on January 29, 2022 was horrific. The Challenger, driven by Gary Dean Robinson, slammed into the right side of a Sienna minivan crossing the intersection, which, by the way, was the same thing that cost me one of my cars as well. Robinson and his passenger were killed, and all 7 people in the minivan, including 4 children. Erlinda Zacharias, the mother of 4 of the crash victims and sister to another, told the local CBS station that her family was returning from a visit to the park. I kept calling everyone's phone because all of them had phones and nobody answered me, she said, fearing the worst. She drove towards where she imagined her family might be and soon found the crash site. I started screaming, Zacharias said. Over 100 Americans die in traffic collisions on the average day, but 9 fatalities from a single incident is exceptional. Crash investigations are not typically handled by local authorities, but in this case the NTSB also launched one of its own. In its findings and recommendations, which were released last week, NTSB placed the blame on Robinson, whose body showed evidence of PCP, alcohol, and cocaine. All 3 things that are illegal to drive on already. Robinson also had a history of reckless driving, leading to NTSB to cite Nevada's failure to deter the driver's speeding recidivism. These findings and related recommendations were unsurprising. But NTSB's investigation summary also included something else. The agencies recommended that automakers install technology in all new cars that can prevent reckless speeding, and for the first time called on the NHTSA to mandate it. That's an excellent overdue idea. Okay, a few things with this. Number 1, that already exists. Where I said mathematically my truck can go to 213, there's already a governor on it. And that's almost 10 years old. Like next year it's 10 years old. That limits it to 93 miles an hour, based on the fact that it was Canadian origin and it goes 150 kilometers an hour. That's something that's been on vehicles since at least the late 90s. It's been standard equipment since the early 2000s, when they changed the gearing ratios to make things go faster at top speed, so they ran at lower RPMs on highway for better fuel economy, and to give them more power, of course, in order to be able to do so. So they couldn't run away. This is something that's existed for 30 years. But I'm sure when we look at what Mr. Zipper has to say, It's a matter of it's going to be safe, and I'm sure that there's totally not going to be a government intervention in there somewhere either, right? We'll just have this device that records and stops you at exactly what the speed limit is by GPS, and you can never ever go faster, and we'll get closer and closer to self-driving. And at which point I will just entirely stop buying new vehicles, which I already plan to do with everything else that they keep trying to cram into these things. I might try and grab a 24, but after that, I'm not going to do it anymore. Especially if they keep trying to put this crap onto them. But with that, my rant is over, and we are out of here. Interesting day. Didn't intend to go almost 3 hours again. Well, we're only at 2:36 on the record time. 2:41 on the live time, but that was with the stream starting soon in there again. Fun stream. Good time. A lot of stuff got done. Starting to debate already. Well, number one, I guess I completely forgot with my lack of sleep that we're going to start at 7 instead of 6 tonight. But also starting to look into things like we might actually have to split this up into 2. Because we're almost getting to a point, and like when I took my break, we were to a point where we could get through 2 hours in one night. But an election year is coming, and it's possible by February we're back up to 5 days a week again. That is a distinct possibility. Just based on how much they're going to try to cram down our throats. It's electioneering. It's what they always do. I think we got to go find someone to raid. I think we got to find some outro music first, too. Any last minute chats in here? Mogwai says Lindsey Graham volunteers as gag for the media. That was the last one we have over there. Nothing on Rumble. A lot of watchers on Rumble. A lot of quiet watchers on Rumble. We got to get you guys out there and chatting and talking here. Well, that's me. I'm going to hear myself. No cat pants tonight. That's lame. Who's playing anything? I don't know. I don't want to go straight to news. Just because we did news all the time already. Let's do this one. Boom and Hooman. We'll do that one. Fallout 4 stream. It's a small channel, so I don't know who's all going to be coming over with me, but we'll do that one. So let's throw some outro music up and let's head out of here. Oops. That's not what I wanted. I wanted outro music. There it is. Alright, so thanks everybody who came by and hung out and chatted through the night here. Got a lot of stuff done, talked about a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff with the tapes too. I got a little bit ranty, but that's to be expected here. We'll be back here. I think I'm going to come back and we're going to do some gaming tomorrow. We'll do our Final Fantasy X. I know that I wanted to get up and bring something for my sister, or make something for my sister's Thanksgiving feast, but I can do that on Thursday morning too if I get up early, which, given the fact that I'm off that day, I'm used to getting up early anyway, so that's a possibility for that. Otherwise, Fallout Friday, because I have to work on Friday, I'll be back here, so we'll be doing Fallout Friday. What else are we going to do? It's Black Friday, everybody's going to be out and exhausted anyway, so, and I have to work on Saturday again too, so I think that'll be a great time for Fallout Friday, and we'll be back here on Tuesday for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. Take care. Have a fantastic night. If you are on Twitch, stick around for the raid. And we will see you next time over here on Contemporary. Have a fantastic night, everybody. Take care.